From One of One Production Studio, located in Fort Lee, New Jersey, this is The Art of Music Tech. And now, here's your host, Fela and Dennis.
Let's go, and welcome to the Art of Music Tech podcast. Here with my co-host, Dennis.
What's up, guys?
And I'm Fela. And today is a special guest and friend of ours, one Eric Rhee. Eric is co-owner of Point 7 Labs out of New York City, content creator, my mentor on video, and really got me into the video game. Eric, so glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Me and Eric, man, we met like 8-9 years ago now, almost the whole time I've been in New York. Ended up working for your DJ AV company, Rewind.
College business. Started in a dorm room.
Yes, he is.
You're still going though, right?
Yeah.
Still going out of a dorm room somewhere. It feels like a dorm. A New York City office feels like a dorm room. Still.
Oh yeah, it sure does. Yeah, it's just little walls that you're constantly churning out things out of. So so out of Rewind, you've been entrepreneurial since the beginning. Rewind was your freshman year, right?
Yeah, actually sophomore year.
Sophomore, all right. And how did that begin?
So I went to the University of San Diego the summer between freshman and sophomore year because my debate coach from high school invited me, and he was like, hey, I'm teaching this SAT camp at the University of San Diego. So he's like, why don't you come down and I'll pay for your flight and give you like $1,000. I was like, okay, that's good beer money. So I flew out, and we were planning the last night for the students, and the debate coach was like, well, maybe as a reward for doing SAT camp, we should take him to the zoo. And I was like, I don't know about you, but, after a week long of SAT camp, I don't really want to go to the zoo. Why don't we throw them a party? And he's like, well, your budget's $1,000, and if you could make, the music and everything happen for under $1,000. So I started Googling places that would rent DJ equipment because I was like, I'll just DJ the party. Found a place in Santa Ana, California, 2 hours away.
You had been DJing before.
Yeah, I had been DJing a little bit since.
So you knew what equipment to rent.
I knew what equipment to rent, and I started Googling and found this place in Santa Ana, California called Eden Audio. And Eden Audio called him up, and he's like, we give you the state-of-the-art equipment. I think at the time he had like, the Mackie... was it the Mackie SRM 450s?
Yeah.
With the brand new American DJ CD system with the crossfader and speed, tempo and beat match thing. So I was like, how much does all this cost? And he's like, where are you based? And I was like, San Diego. He said, $500. Delivered? Yeah, delivered. And set up? Yeah, sure. So he drives this gear down, and it sets it up with like subs, tops. I mean, state-of-the-art equipment. So DJ'd the party, and then as he was wrapping up, I said, hey, your service and product is really good. Do you have an East Coast office? Because I thought he was much bigger. And he goes, no. I said, okay. So then a few weeks later, I was like, well, I'm going back to college. What if I start the East Coast operations for you? And he's like, where would you put the gear? And where would you put the gear? And I said, I'll put it in my dorm room. I just need a little bit. I just need 2 speakers, a mixer, and some CD players and some microphones. So he actually drove the gear in a Chevy Trailblazer rental car across country, dropped off the gear on the day of my first gig at my university. And that's how Rewind started later. It was really Eden Audio at the time, but I actually ended up buying him out later. So that's how Rewind started.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that was how I met Eric, doing DJ gigs, setting up for wedding DJs, and traveling to the Hamptons, doing all of the high-end weddings. I would truck around because I had a car. That was the guy.
What'd you have, a Chevy Impala?
Yes, I had a 2000 huge Chevy Impala that could fit a lot of gear.
That trunk was amazing. I remember that trunk.
It was.
What kind of speakers did you have back then?
We had the Mackie SRM 450s.
Oh, the same one?
The made in Italy version.
Which are a little heavier, but sounded
Passive
great.
or active?
Active.
Active, okay.
Yeah. And then later you got the QSCs and so.
You have two sets of speakers now.
We
Three?
have the K12.2 version 2 upgraded.
Okay.
That's the most important part, the speakers. I really do think the speakers. It tells a lot about your brand, is this type of speakers you set up with. So when I see these bozos using like Behringer, I'm like, yo, don't ever hire that company. But if you got RCF, if you got RCF or QSC, you're like, okay, these guys are probably legit.
Yeah.
Doing something, agree.
Exactly. It's quality.
JBL, you're not really sure. They're kind of in the middle.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, you're not sure.
But EAW, that's pro. EAW.
Yeah, that starts it up. Yeah, EAW.
Agreed.
Folks were at House of Blues. They're 650s. Good mid-range, but I mean, now the technology is so next level with...
Even with QSC.
Yeah, with line array and portable line arrays now, it's just, it's gone to another level. So yeah, I met you through Rewind, but then while I was working for you, you had just finished the Kimchi Chronicles project. And that was how I got introduced to you about the video side of it. So could you tell us about that project and all that entailed? And actually how you got into that with Charlie and how that...
I mean, I was always a DJ, and I thought this college business that I started for Rewind would be a nice side hustle. And with New York City rent and beer prices being so high, you have to have a side hustle. But my main job was producing television, and I got into that because through Rewind, I DJ'd a famous food and travel TV producer's daughter's birthday party named Charlie, and he ended up becoming my mentor and business partner on the TV side. It's a long story, but basically, he had a project and he wanted some help, and I was in between jobs. So I said, sure, I'll help out. And the rest is history. But DJ equipment rentals changed my life.
Got you in the room.
Changed your life. But you still have Rewind and Point 7, though. So Point 7 is towards video content, and Rewind is still
audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, get into who's in those projects again. Like what and
Yeah. So first show I ever worked on was a series with Gwyneth Paltrow, Maury Batali, Mark Bittman, and Claudia Basols. It's a travel series through the country of Spain. Started that in 2007, finished it in 2008. And really, that was just the craziest travel show. We were on the road for like 13 straight weeks filming.
Wow. In Spain.
In Spain, driving everywhere. We didn't fly anywhere. We drove 10,000 kilometers on that production just for shooting it. So in Mercedes-Benz, because they were a sponsor.
5,000 miles, 6,000 miles.
6,000, miles. So we started in one part of Spain and just did like a big circle. Charlie brought me on the project, and he's really the creative guy, and I sort of figured out my knack to focus on the business stuff. It was very entrepreneurial. I got to experiment, got to try some things, fail, succeed. Felt like a true partnership that worked out for a good 6-7 years.
Yeah.
I remember you were saying you bought cameras. I think you had those 2 Panasonic, right?
Well, we bought that for a different project. I tried to start a website and sort of news site called Korean Beacon.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story goes, well, this is more of a personal sort of development story, but basically not all, the Spain project wasn't all, whipped cream and cherry on top. It was a lot of heartache,
Hiccups.
a lot of hiccups, a lot of tears, a lot of fucking crazy things happened on that.
Expected or unexpected?
Both, I think, mostly unexpected. But Charlie almost died had like a bleeding ulcer, and I had to call 911 in Spain. He had to get ambulance, and I had to direct for 3 days, and I never had directed before.
Oh.
Had to speak another language and quickly learn how to connect on the cultural level. But some of the unexpected stuff was mind-boggling, because you just kind of do it and hopefully you make it, and you have no plan. One of the things that bothered me coming out of that project was, I have a lot of pride in the fact that I love technology and electronics, but when it came to camera equipment, I knew nothing. And it was very clear that I knew nothing because nobody consulted me on any of the decisions. It was a very sort of veterans type of conversation where, the director and the DP would talk, and with a lighting guy, the gaffer, and they would make these decisions, and I would listen in, but I didn't have any insight. So that bothered me, that I couldn't add value to a conversation, because I always like to be a part of conversations. And two, the crew sort of treated me as, when like a successful businessman or woman brings his son or daughter into the family business, and nobody takes that person seriously.
Oh, wow.
So I felt like nobody took me seriously, because I was just kind of the add-on. So I felt like I had to prove my worth, and certainly on the logistics side I was able to, and on the finance side, but on the technical side, nobody actually gave two shits what I knew and didn't know, and I didn't know much. So following that project, I made it a point to help start a company that had a video component, so I could go shoot it on my own, I could light it on my own, I can make all the mistakes, so that the next project that I'm on, I could say, okay, I've tried it, and here's what I think, and at least have an opinion. And so, that's what led me to buy those two cameras and edit software. Was like, unless you do it and try it, you won't get it. And so finally,
I agree.
Finally got able to do it, and found out that I wasn't good at it, but at least I could talk about it. And that's really what fueled me to at least earn the respect of the crew for future shoots. And so kind of it's one of those things like in basketball or sports. It's like people doubt you, or people don't really know what your value is, and you work on it in the off season, whether it's the free throw or the 3-point shot or defense.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I use sort of that Korean beacon experience to be sort of my off season workout, to work on the things that I didn't do well or didn't know before. And I think that ultimately drove my passion and enthusiasm for production, is investing in yourself to know the shit that you're supposed to know.
Agreed. Hey, we bought those cameras from you, so we did the same thing you did.
Yeah.
Probably 5 years later, maybe.
Yeah, those same cameras
Same
that
cameras.
we used on actually the first iteration of the Art of Music Tech, which
And
was
we
a
actually,
video.
we actually spent money on it, and we got a return. So
Yeah.
That's the idea. I mean, my return was knowledge and network. Met a lot of people doing Crew and Beacon, and learned a lot. And then, you have to start somewhere. And if you start with any kind of foundation, you can at least have a perspective versus, I don't know, never done that before. But, when it then came to whether you use a $1,000 camera or a $50,000 camera, not that much is different when you talk about setting up shots, right? It's it's getting used to the lingo. It's getting used to the idea. It's getting used to, having an opinion. So the biggest thing from going from a novice to a professional was always gaining that opinion. And it's okay to be wrong, but till this day, what drives me nuts when I work with people that want to grow in this industry is, I don't know. I'm like, well, you should at least have an opinion. And if you don't, come back to me tomorrow with an opinion.
and do a research.
And do your research. You don't have to own it. Just show a little
Discipline. Yeah.
discipline and curiosity. I think curiosity is the biggest thing, right?
Agree.
If you're not curious, you ain't gonna learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you taught me that in moving here, and I was basically your assistant for a little over a year. So we spent a lot of time together every day for a while, and you taught me that entrepreneurial spirit of figure it out. Oh, well, you didn't know this? Well, Google it. It's like, oh, well,
Use the resource.
I mean, everybody has it, but I had to like hear it from you to be like, well, why didn't you just figure that out? I was like, oh. It took me a while to just be like, oh, just look up what I don't know and be able, to bring something to the table. Well, I found this out. What if we did it this way? And then, so it was...
It helps everybody.
That was a lot of growth working with you because, man, we ended up doing a coffee shop together in that year. I learned so much about business.
Good coffee.
Yeah.
Which we still drink in the studio.
And how to make the perfect cup of coffee with the pour-over method. Where did the entrepreneurial spirit come from you? Was that from day one, or you see it from your parents that you wanted to own your own business in the future?
It's not so much about owning your own business. It's not a power thing. It's just I grew up, ultimately what makes me want to be entrepreneurial is not the idea of selling a company or making lots of money. It's being able to own your time. I think growing up, I saw my father. He worked 7 days, and I can't recall being disappointed because he had to put work over me. I always feel like he was there for Little League practice, Little League games, wrestling matches, water polo matches. I don't think he would have enjoyed coming to my debate tournaments because, policy debate is a little weird. But I would say that it was that ability to give that to my kids that drives me to be an entrepreneur. Now, when you have to work for somebody else, I hope culture will change. But it's like, I'll get my work done, but politics works against you in a big corporation. It's all about perception, right? So you could produce, but you dip out early to go to your son's Little League, people talk shit. And I just never want to be in part of an environment where it's all show. But that ultimately drives me the most is I want to be able to not only be there for my daughter's, activities and performances and matches, but I'd like to one up my father and actually try to coach one of those teams one day. And I don't know how you do that unless you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, in charge of your own time.
I mean, my Little League coach, he worked for the fire department, so he worked hard, but he knew that he had to work 3 24-hour shifts, and that was his schedule. Like, he basically lived at the firehouse 3 days a week so that the rest of the time he could dedicate to Little League and running a Little League team. So I see that. I see that the most successful people that I grew up with were like doctors and lawyers, and they're the ones that actually never showed up to the games. So that actually deterred me from even pursuing medicine or law. And so, in some ways, as much as I love the idea of building a big-ass company, I'm more interested in being able to own my time, because that's the only currency that it's the highest value. How do you say this? I think time is the currency that's the most valuable to each person. And
can't get it back, can't buy it.
Can't buy it, can't get it back, and you get every second once. We don't get this opportunity again. And so that idea of owning time is so vital. Doesn't mean I don't want to work. I just want to work when I don't have to give up something important, right? I'll
Yeah.
work till midnight. I'll work till 2 a.m. when my kids are asleep.
Uh-huh.
But there's a window of 3 p.m. to like 5, 6 p.m. one day that I hope I can dip out and be there for them. Also, we talk about vacation days. I don't necessarily, consider myself ever off the clock. So, but when I'm traveling, I'm checking out for things. I'm looking for opportunities. It's not just, I don't like beach vacations for that because I'm not learning. I don't like to relax. I like to explore new cultures. I want to go to new countries, try new food because that's again, like I can lie and rest. Someone said something interesting. It's like, you'll get plenty of time to rest after you die.
Sure.
And
Sure.
So
I've heard that quote. Yeah.
So I just feel like there's a lot out there for us, and you want to live it to its fullest. And my wife is actually a big proponent of living life to the fullest, and we'll push the boundaries on, like, for example, we're taking our kids to London in 2 weeks. Holy cow! First international trip as a family of 4, 7-hour flight. We have no idea what's going to happen, but are we nervous? Yes. Are we excited? Yes. Will our kids remember? Probably not, but we will.
Your older daughter will remember that.
At 3.5, you think? I don't know.
It'll be a foggy memory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But she's pretty smart, so maybe she will remember. But
Yeah.
the thing in today's world, like back then, like, we could take photos.
Yeah, video.
We show it to her.
Yeah.
And my dad and mom kept an album, with physical photos, and they still have them to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't remember it, them, sharing those memories with me 5-10 years certainly forms what makes me happy and my values and my goals. It's this idea of, owning your time so you can be there for your kids, but also creating these memory books. Nowadays, we don't physically need a book. It's a iPhoto album, or for us, it's a Google photo book. But reliving those things, that's the key to happiness. Is like, have you created enough memories where you can go back and relive it and be proud of your accomplishments? And if you have nothing to share for or show for, if you have nothing to show for your accomplishments, it doesn't come in the form of a trophy. It's actually through these photos that we capture. And for me, if we could fill up that book to the best of our ability, I think that's my wife and my goal is, share that so that when they have kids, they can sort of feel empowered and excited for, one-upping us. Maybe it's,
Yeah, it's always getting better.
Always getting better. Agree. But that, so you're going on the trip, and you said you're still checking out emails and learning. Did you plan any specific places you want to visit and try food?
I like to, so my experience as a food and travel producer was always to not use guidebooks, or sort of like the sniff it out on your own. So good stories. I met a friend the other day for lunch in Midtown, and he's on 46th and Avenue of the Americas. It's like the heart of corporate America meets tourism, right?
Yep.
Like Radio City, all that
All
stuff.
that stuff.
Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
Rockefeller.
So
Majestic.
he invites me to his office, and then we were like, let's go get lunch. And I was like, oh, what's around here? And I see a Chick-fil-A in one corner. Across the street, there's a Pret a Manger. And I think there was a McDonald's on the other side. So I was like, oh, and a Europa Cafe. So I was like, man, none of this stuff is exciting. And then I see out of my left corner, like 1 or 2 stores down from Pret a Manger, was this little old-looking Italian sort of deli market, like faded sign in green, red, and white. And I was like, Christian, why don't we go over there? He's like, what is that? Have you been there? I was like, this guy's been working in this office for a year or two, and he's never heard of this market, even though it's next to the Pret a Manger that he goes to. So we walk over, and it's like this hole-in-the-wall Italian deli. Guy in the front, cash only, hot buffet in the back, cold cuts in the front. And I was like, this is the kind of place that I would eat at. It's probably not in a guidebook somewhere, but it's a family-run business that has a tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm doing is tapping into tradition at that point, right? The food might suck. It might not be good. I still remember it was a cash business. And he's like, what do you have? And I said, cold Italian with I think I had a seltzer bottle. He's like, that's $11. And then I was my buddy in line got the same thing, and he goes cash only, and my friend only had $6, and I think I had $4 extra, and he's like, just give me 10. And the owner of the business or whoever at the front was like, all right, that's it. I mean, there's no protocol. It was just like, take your sandwich and go. But the energy in that place was purely old school and tradition driven, and I love that.
Did you like the food? Did you like the sandwich?
Sandwich was good.
Amazing,
I ate the whole
right?
sandwich.
Oh, okay.
And was it the best Italian? No, but was it a pretty unique experience that day in that circumstance? Heck yeah. I mean,
Instead of going to McDonald's. So.
Yeah.
If I went to Pret a Manger, I don't think that meal would be as memorable. I don't think I'd be telling you the story.
Yeah.
But, whether it's audio or video or just my personal life, it's all about storytelling. It's all about living that story that you want to write. And sometimes that gets, inspired by different things, unexpected and expected. And so for me, I always like to push that boundary and be like, let's try something that nobody else is thinking about. And I think that if you translate that philosophy to everything that you do, yes, you'll get in trouble sometimes, but ultimately it adds to the adventure of, I've never taken 4 kids on a flight or 2 kids on a flight to London. I've been to London, but when I went, it was for work, and now it's completely different.
Yeah.
Responsibility
and lens. I have to look for all the kid-friendly stuff. And so where we stay is not necessarily the best hotel, but what's closest to the park, because I know that there's stuff in the park to do, and it's nice. But it's one of those things where that's curiosity. What are you curious about? I'm curious to find the one interesting place to eat around this neighborhood that is otherwise not called Pret a Manger, McDonald's, or Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. We've had some epic meals I've had with you.
And you cooked at home, so some great food.
Oh, yeah.
Barbecue.
Oh, yeah, the Korean barbecue. Oh.
Not as good as your mom's carrot cake. I still think that's an adventure in and of itself.
I agree, too.
The carrot cake?
My mom's carrot cake is pretty dope.
I tried to make it once. She gave me the recipe, and I made it. She's like, it's okay. I was like, you're right. It's just okay. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Even though I use exactly the recipe that she just... In Korean, they say there's something called sonman. It's like the taste of the hand. And so
exactly.
I feel like, 2 people can cook the same thing, but the way they
personal touch.
Yeah, that personal touch makes a big difference.
Yeah. Stuff like that inspired me with 23dB. It's just telling stories about the gear we like. I just took it in another way. And actually, even my mom is a part of this. She does the VO for this. So she makes cakes doing VO.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I get to use all the stuff that we're passionate about on a business, and that's what I like about it as well. It's just like, I like this thing, and I know that I could be pretty good at it, and just going after it, like you said, on the days, when on your personal time, if you do have to do another job, and that was what I learned while working with you, and that was why I wanted to have you on. I mean, we're not talking about audio, but there's different aspects to starting a business and the people that you run across that may not just be in audio or this, that, and the other, but I was open. And we ended up meeting, and it's been
so many
an amazing friendship, with
and then I met
stories.
Eric Rhee.
Yeah, and the power of stories that you always talk about, and we take
and great food
great food, yeah.
Great food. I've tried.
Yeah, all the great food, coffee, and $high liquor that I've gotten to try with you. So,
I think it came from curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you being curious about.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be curious, and if you're curious with other curious people, it's a beautiful thing. You know, you guys are curious about things. I'm curious about things. That leads to the tasting of liquor or food or music or tech, right? We're curious to get each other's perspective. Why? Because we're not know-it-alls. We're not, we don't even want to know it all. It's just like,
you don't want to,
we just want to connect. It's really just to connect and say, hey, there's something here that we're both really interested in. Let's just talk about it and bond. I mean, the human connection and human interaction is a necessity. And I think the people that get along will connect over the right things. If you talk to me about, expensive sneakers, my business partner is really into nice sneakers, and I'm like, I try to find stuff for under $50.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't really understand. But I will not skimp on a pair of headphones or a speaker or even, a cell phone. To me, those are the things that I'm curious about is how do I get the best out of the things that I care about? But,
They make the entire experience better too. And I think it'll make you more money too.
Yeah, I don't know what, I think a good friend of mine, Daniel Kim, Deep Fried Productions, told me something. And he was always like, it's not about money, it's always about time. So I get that, the idea of time. But another guy, he truly believes, there's a guy named Kyle, he's wealthy, successful venture capitalist, but he goes, at any given moment, you have the right amount of money that you're supposed to have. It's kind of a refreshing way to think about it. If you say to yourself, hey, at any given moment, I have the right amount of money, or I have the amount of money that I'm supposed to have, you start thinking differently. Instead of saying, I don't have enough money, or I have all this money, if you say to me, like, are we living, breathing? Stuff might not be doing so well, but maybe it's all for a reason. I'd like to believe that, there's a higher power that is watching over us, but at the same time, when it comes down to something tangible such as money, I sort of always think about the idea that whether you're in debt or didn't get a business deal or got a huge business deal, I actually am starting to believe that any given moment, you have exactly what you need.
What you deserve too.
Perhaps, right? It's a function of there's a function of skill, there's a function of luck, there's a function of, relationships. And so I think some combination of all that contributes to where you stand. And so yes, till this day, like, I own a house. Probably supposed to own that house. I have credit card debt. Probably supposed to have that credit card debt, because if I didn't, maybe it makes me less disciplined, right? Own some stocks, even though I have debt. None of this makes sense. There's no algorithm. And if you're a financial planner listening to this, you're probably freaking out saying, you have no financial plan. You sound pretty, little loopy. But I think, honestly, like, you need some debt, you need some equity, you need some assets, you need some liabilities. Those are all the things that drive you. And so, you work hard to pay that debt off. But you also can sleep at night because you own the house that's over your head. You lease one car, you buy the other one. It's one of those things where, you spend money on a vacation, but then you don't buy $200 sneakers or $500 sneakers,
Sacrifice?
I think it's balance.
Balance, okay.
I think there's a balance to everything, and I think that people who are greedy either for money or for handouts suffer from that. I think Fayla and I were talking the other day, but entitlement is no good. Curiosity and a desire to just push yourself, then I think it's almost like, what's that one thing? It's like, if you're doing a balancing, so what is it? If you're doing a tightrope walk, right? If you go to the circus and you see the tightrope walk, like, if you overdo it on one side, you're going to fall. If you underdo it on one side, you're going to fall.
You're going to fall.
And if you fall, maybe you're supposed to fall so that it saves your life for the next time when you think about stuff, you know?
You may get injured, though.
You may get injured.
You may learn from the experience.
Honestly, like, even Kevin Durant, who just blew his Achilles heel playing, and he still got he got a max contract, even though he has, and honestly, like, I know in my mind, I'm like, it's all good. He's not in New York necessarily to play basketball. He's in New York to launch a media company too. So the next year he's going to work out and he's going to continue to make content. He's a businessman. He's in New York to do that, right? And he doesn't have to compete with LeBron in LA and his business. So I'm like, hey, you know, what's going to help KD long term in his entire future? Is it an Achilles injury that launches his media company by being in New York? Or would it have been another NBA championship with Golden State? And I think about that and I say, honestly, KD, like, you are welcome to work on your rehab and spend the next year looking at business and meet with all the right people in New York and build your network. Then go play for another year, 2 or 3. And that's what LeBron is doing, is he's got people running different parts of his brand, making money on all parts of his brand. And so for me, you got to take what's coming to you and own it and lean into it. The more I think about it, it's like I lean into things the more, rather than feeling like, oh man, I missed that, or hey, I should have done that. You know, I'm like, this is the card that I was dealt. Now what's the play? And so I think keeping your composure, understanding that the world will help you recalibrate if you lose your balance, as long as you're focused on you and focusing on calibrating yourself. But the world is there to help you. You just can't think you're above it or below it. And I feel bad for those who feel like they're below it, because I think there are people out there that want to help, but not if you don't try, not if you're not curious. So for me, I feel like the biggest opportunity in life is get to that point where no matter what, you can balance and teeter back and forth, good and bad. And I think you'll generally be happy that way.
Balance.
Balance. Sometimes we call it neutral, but
neutral to me is a little opinionless, I think.
Okay.
But there's a book by a Vietnamese French monk named Thich Nhat Hanh or something like that. I'm messing up his name, but there's a book called Peace in Every Step, or Peace is Every Step. And the main philosophy behind meditation and a little bit of Buddhism is the idea of being able to appreciate the moment, the current moment. So rather than thinking too far in the future or about yesterday, is like, if there's a flower in front of you right now, can you appreciate it? And most people be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yes.
But if you can't appreciate that flower, you got to work on leaning into things in life and understand that, you know, you're either going to never appreciate anything, or you're going to appreciate the wrong things, and it's going to lead you down this path. But, well, I still need to work on it. But sometimes I see a flower and I'm like, wow, like, we're living, breathing. That plant is living, breathing. We live in a world where we're alive and anything is possible, right?
Yeah.
And so other times I don't even think about the flower. But if you always boil it down to even this moment, the three of us being able to do this without worrying about anything bad happening, you know, or more importantly, you know, waiting to this moment to have this conversation. We all learned something from it, hopefully, but I think everything happens for a reason, good and bad.
We're looking forward to it, though. So we saw you last week and you say you'll come back. So here we are again.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Eric. That was fantastic. That's kind of a look into our backgrounds of video, where we get our ideas and equipment from that I get to borrow from him since we live so close. So what's next for Point 7 Labs? Let's just start wrapping this up.
Point 7 Labs, hopefully we'll produce a couple shows, and we're looking for interesting partnerships that help us change the game of content a little bit. We can do brand films, but I had a really good meeting today with a friend of mine that I haven't talked to in many years, He's got this cool sort of media company that is in the culture space, and looking forward to having a conversation of how we can do some new things in content. So that, and Growing Pains is a small company, figuring out your identity, figuring out cash flow, figuring out the team and the resources and the right clients. It's an ongoing thing, but again, trying to live it day by day while still being strategic for the future. But you can't ever have a conflict-free situation. You got to lean into it and say, okay, get into it, hit the reset button, hit the rewind button, or whatever you got to do.
And the rewind button.
Yeah. That's another great thing. You taught me about partnering up with people and how to bring value with you. You bringing it and seeing how it can work for both parties, and that definitely helped us propel in a lot of ways too. Just seeing you do it, and I was like, oh, okay. What if I just hit up this company and see if they're interested? You can just ask. You never know. And for us, it's paying off a lot. Just going to conventions and doing that kind of thing. So, where could people find you or get in touch with your company? Because you also still have Rewind going, which give all the social info.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for video work, people can hit up Point 7 Labs, www.pointsevenlabs.com. And then for Rewind, audio, DJ, rental, equipment, services, and production is just www.rheewind.com. And my Instagram is just a food, and that's just RHEEWIND.
All right. Well, we'll have all that in the summary as well. But thank you so much, Eric Rhee.
Thank you, guys.
Point 7 Labs, great friend of One of One Productions and 23 DB Productions. Live from the One of One Productions studio in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Thank you for listening. Please share with a friend. The Art and Music Tech podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all the good stuff. iHeartRadio. Thank you for listening, and let's go.
Let's go.
For more information of booking 23DB Productions, visit their website at 23dbproductions.com. Like and follow 23DB Productions at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the latest work.